All right, so I'm going to get started by dividing my page. Remember that my page is twice as large as yours is. So I like to find the middle top, middle bottom, one line through, and then I do two shorter ones over here and here. Try to find the middle. And you don't have to divide your page, but I prefer to. I like to have 4 sections over here, and then I like to have 2 sections over here. And what we're going to do is we are going to start using perspective systems. So these are just your notes up here, we'll reference them. But remember that when you draw in isometric or one-point perspective, you're going to have 3 sets of lines. And those 3 sets are horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. All these lines are parallel to each other, and they all have a job to do. Horizontal lines tell you how wide something is, vertical lines tell you how tall something is, and diagonal lines tell you how far back in space your object goes. We're going to call this oblique. We're going to grow this, okay? And we're going to use one-point perspective. So you'll notice that I started my square with this shape, right? Or I started my form, I should say, with this shape. So this step is actually almost the same. But the difference is, and look at this, I'm going to cut this up, so I'm going to have there. In a one-point perspective drawing, you're communicating that the object is large enough that it is going to appear to get smaller as it goes back in space. So think of it this way. Oblique perspective would be something that's close to you. Like when I hold my pencil box, all right, like you could draw this. I mean, granted the corners are rounded, but you could draw this pencil box in oblique perspective. So if something is relatively small, so like it can be held in your hands, and like that is the time to use oblique perspective. If something is very big, you are going to need to use 1, 2, or 3-point perspective, and lucky for you, today is 1-point perspective day. So let's start with a few concepts. So in one-point perspective, you're going to need to define the horizon line. So this line right here is the horizon line. Before you define the horizon line, I'm sorry, I'm doing this out of order, you also want to define your picture plane. Your picture plane think of it as a window into your world. So this is my picture plane, this thick line. And in your world, you're going to have a vanishing point, and your vanishing point can be anywhere along the horizon line. I would try not to do it at the very edges of the page, but that is me. So here is my vanishing point. No need to overdraw it, it's just for you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw the front, the face of my building. Alright, it's just a square. We're still using horizontal and vertical lines, okay? So we're using horizontal and vertical lines, but now our diagonal lines become rays. So in this picture over here, you know, we had these diagonal lines that kicked back in space and showed our viewer how far back the box goes. Now we have a similar concept, but our rays are going to go from each corner to the vanishing point. You got to get them as straight as you can. If you need to use a ruler, use a ruler. I think of this as practice. I like the idea of having to ghost and draw a very true line because I like the idea of doing things in a way where I'm constantly improving. So I've got these rays, and right now I've got this wedge that kind of goes back in space forever. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another horizontal line, and I'm going to define how far back in space this goes. Make sure I'm ghosting to get that line in my head, ghosting to get that in my head, and then you just highlight the rays you want to keep. Just like that. There we go, there's my perspective box. For extra learning, draw through your box. So there we go. That is your kind of lecture on 1 point perspective.